Thanks for joining us today at BIV Today, the daily podcast from the newsroom of business in Vancouver. I'm Kirk LaPointe, publisher and editor-in-chief. This is the second of a two-part podcast featuring the recipients of BIV's CEO of the Year awards. The podcast is sponsored by the province's largest law firm, Fasken, with 800 lawyers in 10 offices in Canada, the United Kingdom, South Africa, and China. We're grateful for its support of our events and our journalism. Today, we're going to meet two CEOs at what I think are slightly different stages of their paths, but with common successes and purposes to discuss. Marcia Nozak is the Lifetime Achievement Award recipient this year, and she built the East Side Movement for Business and Economic Renewal Society, EMBERS for short, which is an extraordinary enterprise that has built jobs and purpose for those without privilege in our midst, in our communities. And Brad Liskey is the recipient in the small company category. And he's launched in the last 2 years a phenomenally fast-growing company, True Earth, that produces environmentally friendly detergent and, of special note, environmentally friendly packaging. The two were among 5 recipients at our awards show Monday, and I'm delighted they can join us today for a discussion. Good to see you both.
Nice to see you too.
I want to start with influences on you, and take us back as far as you have to in your lives, whether or maybe it's some adults, maybe it's teachers, maybe it's colleagues, who it is. But Brad, start me off. Like, where did this drive to build businesses come from?
Yeah, that's a great question, and my wife asked me that many times. And I think it really started very early age, in that I was unfortunate to lose my father at the age of 15. Oh. And it kind of rocked me into being a 20-year-old immediately. I was the youngest of 5 kids, and most of my siblings had moved on with their careers already, and I was at home. But at the age of 18, I joined my brother and started one of our first companies. And that kind of got me going. And the influence, I guess, at that time was my dad. So even though, it was very few years we had together, and quite frankly, at a 15-year-old, you probably didn't hear any lessons that he ever tried to teach. But as I look back, there's kind of 3 key things that I saw him represent that I continued in what I would consider my career. And that was to be kind, to be humble, and then just get the work done. And that work ethic was critical.
Yeah.
After that,
by the way, you don't have to hear things in order to pick up on things, do you?
No, you don't. No, and sometimes it's better when you don't, because especially at that age where you don't believe anything. But as my career went on, there were several companies that I've owned over the last 30 years. So a number of different business partners, including my 2 brothers and a couple of very key people that taught me little bits, and everyone had a different lens on reality. And I think that gave me an understanding that people are inherently different, but we come down to the core of that social responsibility to business, and that the true successes resonate around that which you can create any type of movement or any type of belonging or belief system. Yeah. And the one I really resonate with is my wife, who helped me really understand what the most vulnerable among us actually means. Making sure that the ego gets a hold of you as a CEO, and she does a very good job of keeping me humble, as well as just keeping me understanding that there's a lot of people that need a lot more than we have.
Well, Marcia, this is a nice segue, of course, into your work, but take me back to the influences on your work, on your drive.
Okay. Yeah. So I'm just thinking about it now as I'm listening to Brad. Well, in terms of the drive, I think that honestly, I think my piano teacher, I'm going to go back to my piano teacher who, I do have a performance degree in piano. And she had drive, and she would just say, you have a mind like a steel trap. You can do anything, like she really pushed and pushed and pushed. And so I think there I had some sense of myself that I can do it, whatever. And my mother used to say, you can do anything you set your mind to. Although we had a lot of, I grew up in the 60s. We had a lot of conflict. I was very alternative. And so that's another influence, I think, was the culture that I grew up in the 60s and the 70s. Really, I fought for the underdog. I was kind of always kind of like that, maybe.
Why did you fight for the underdog? What was it about you?
It's a really good question. I think that I felt a little different than other people. And there was something that made me, I was just attracted to people who were not just, I think maybe I was rebellious, just traditional. I think I grew up in a family, middle-class family, wanted me to get married to a doctor and a lawyer and to do this and this and this. And I think I was kind of rebellious. And so it kind of took me into more of the underside and, wanting to, I think there was a sense of wanting to be more alternative, different than the traditional that my parents brought me up with. I mean, those are the early kind of influences. They're still there.
That's nice. I hear in both of you the values that you wish to convey, and but I'm always wondering, there is a kind of a solitude still that takes place in the top of an organization. There are only so many people that you really want to confide in. But where is that outlet for confidence with someone? Marcia, I'll stay with you on this. Who's out there that you can confide in, because life isn't always perfect as a CEO, right?
That's really true. I mean, I've stayed up many nights, with my mind going and worrying about this and trying to find different configurations for that. Well, I work, honestly, I do work with my husband. My husband is a director of business development with Embers. So I can share with him my thoughts. It's very fortunate, that I can kind of bounce things off. And
but you can't always do this to your partner, right? There must be other. Yeah.
Well, that's true. It's a good question. I mean, I think that I have a few people, even on my board, but again, sometimes you want to talk to people outside, just people, mentors that I've come across with over the years. There have been some people in business there. I have some friends, good friends that I can talk to and that kind of thing. Yeah,
nice. Brad, you talk about your wife, of course, but and your brothers, but where else? What's the circle of some confidence that you have with people?
Yeah, and that's a very critical piece of this, and I say quite often to younger entrepreneurs is that, especially entrepreneurialism, it's kind of one of the loneliest professions in the world, and having someone or a group of people to speak with is the way you can kind of survive. And I have that that best friend type of environment where he'll walk with me for an hour, and I don't think he says more than 3 words. You just kind of having that venting, that outlet. And then I try and get a kind of around a group of like-minded people as best as possible. I've been mentoring out at UBC and other mentors and chatting with them, and just knowing you're not alone in your problems and the challenges that you face become so important that you can then wake up in the morning and face them again. Those become that important portion of survival.
Yeah, and I mean, certainly for CEOs, what you also hear, apart from that solitude that can sometimes be there, is also the pace and the pressure. And a lot of it's very self-imposed, but some of it's externally imposed as well. So what I wonder about there, and Brad, I'll stay with you, your self-care. What's your self-care strategy?
Yeah, to try and take care of yourself and remember to allocate the time. I hang most of my hat on meditation. So when a couple of businesses I had during 9/11, we were in the travel industry, and we took a pretty big impact when the planes flew into the buildings, and I took up meditation at that time. And about seven years of training I went through to get myself to slow my brain down and to just calm and be in the moment and understand what's happening around me. And then you try and do the exercise, but as age takes its toll, that exercise goes from playing basketball at night to watching basketball from the couch. But you try and implement that, and you hope to again put those people around you that want to see you make it past past 60. So and you try and get them to help push you and get outside and do something. But meditation.
You're saying that you can't get fit by watching sports on TV?
I'm trying. I'm trying.
I didn't figure that out yet. Marcia, how about you? Your self-care?
That's a good question too. I'm not that great at it, but there are things I do. Interesting you say meditation. I've been a student of Buddhism for many years now, and I do retreats, and that's definitely a big part of my life. I also have a very large extended family and grandchildren, and I love that. Just spending every Saturday night, I have about 12 people for dinner, and I kind of get kind of grumpy because I feel like I'm cooking too much, or I'm doing, but I love it because I bring people together, and it's so not my work outside. It's so different. And when you have, a 7-year-old running around and a preteen, your mind is just focused totally on something different. So I actually enjoy it. I even enjoy doing housework.
Yeah, well, Brad and I will be over on Saturday night.
Welcome, doors open.
You're going to be seen, I think, today by a number of people that aren't really at your stages of success yet, and they're going to look for the kinds of advice that typically a lot of newer entrepreneurs and a lot of people with also a sense of mission and purpose, even if they're not particularly business focused, and they look at the two of you and they see that kind of success, and so impart a little bit about some of the advice that you give to people in order to get them on what you think is the most appropriate path. Marcia?
Yeah, I think, first of all, I think our world has got so many, it's just problems that are compounding, as we all can see. We have the climate crisis. We've got, really a widening disparity between the rich and the poor and the haves and the have-nots. We have a lot of problems to solve. And so I would say creativity. We really need people's minds. We need young people. And so I would say, first of all, allow yourself to be creative, just don't copy somebody else, see what's right for you. And then, I think you have to persevere, you have to persevere in what you do and believe in yourself and step up to the plate. I think there was a long time in my life where I had a lot of confidence in my capacity, but not in the world, my place in the world. And, it's taken me a long time to realize, my voice counts. So every voice counts, more so than ever right now. So I would really say, step into it, don't be embarrassed, whatever, just step up.
Nice. Brad?
That's actually very good advice. I'll just say that. No, from my perspective, and people ask that a lot right now, and one of the number ones is to, when you hire smart people, and then let them tell you what to do. Don't hire smart people and tell them what to do. It doesn't work. There's no use hiring the smart people. So that's the number one thing to do. From my also belief is that, especially as an entrepreneur leader, is that your job is to make decisions based on the information you have at your disposal at that time. And then if you're wrong, clean up the mess. So just own it, fix it, and then move on. And don't get caught in it or get out of the way and say it's somebody else's problem. Just own it people see you owning those messes, and they'll take that culture with you. And then the last thing I tell them is to humanize the business. It is, that saying it's just business. Well, no, it's not just business. There's a human element to business at all times. And humanizing that business gets you a lot farther than just, rattling profits.
Yeah. Both of you, it strikes me, have immense purpose in what you're doing right now. And with that will come setbacks, not just always successes. And so I want to understand from each of you, first of all, how you possess and maintain your optimism, because I'm sure you're inherently both optimistic, but how you deal with setback. And that's I think another thing that budding entrepreneurs want to always know is how do you deal with some failure and all of it. So it's a two-part question. How do you keep the optimism going? How do you deal with the setback, Brad?
I think the optimism comes from the fact that you're leading, so you're going to have an element of optimism. If your energy kind of sets the tone of the energy of the organization, and I call it an organization and not a company because it is a group of like-minded people around a purpose. So you have a job. That's your job, is to find the optimism in that. And how do we deal with the failure is that we actually want it. In our hyper growth world, we want failure because that's the only way you actually learn, and that's how you change and how you move forward and how you disrupt. So if we want the failure, and we just don't want you to fail twice at the same thing. So it's to fail fast, learn from it, and then move on. If you're not failing in our world, you're not trying hard enough.
Nice. Marcia?
Yeah, so optimism. Well, I think optimism is in the world. You see how wonderful. I'm working with people. I mean, just people that have been set aside by society, and you get to know them, and they're wonderful people. You see that, and so you have a belief in human life and human quality. So, the optimism comes from the work itself. I think the people that I'm around, also, I think just the act of creativity and that kind of thing. It's a positive thing. We have a lot of problems, and we do have a lot of setbacks. And I would say it, like in our business, our social enterprise. I mean, I can't even begin to tell you how many mistakes I have made along the way. I'll give you one example. We're a temp staffing company, and we work primarily with construction sites. And when I first started this company, I opened at 9 o'clock in the morning.
Oh.
Like that's how it didn't strike me.
That's when they're having their lunch.
Exactly. Yeah. So, and every day in our office, we're always, we're always, things are always happening, right? There's all kinds of things. And we look at it. We say, okay, well, how can we do this differently? Well, how did this happen? I do think you learn from your mistakes. It's the only way, because I didn't have any expertise. I had to learn the hard way, tripping and falling and getting up and going.
Yeah, nice. The pandemic imposed a whole new layer or two or three or five atop everybody in running operations and all that. And I want to understand from you each what you feel you've learned, but mainly what you've learned about yourselves in the pandemic. Marcia?
What have I learned? Let me think about myself. I've learned that I don't have to be, one thing is working. I've worked a lot from home. I never did that before. I would be in the office at 5:30. I was constantly there. I've learned that I can work from home, and I can let my front office staff deal with things. I've let go of a lot and allowed the organization to kind of come to their own terms of operation, and I can, so that's something that's quite different, really, because I tend to have been quite controlling and sort of in there a lot, and I think that I've pulled back in that way, and I can watch from afar and I see, and I've got a great team, so that's been great. And what else? I guess, I've learned that I can problem solve. You have to be on top of it, and you just, problem solving, flexibility, as they say, pivoting, all of that, which I think everybody's had to do. And I think we've been quite good at that. And yeah.
Those are good things. Brad, what have you learned about yourself?
Yeah. I think I learned about myself is how important kind of being kind is, be understanding that everybody's world's a little bit different, and their home lives are different, and their work lives, and the mental stress that the pandemic has put on our team members, and trying to understand and make sure that I'm understanding that, as well as reality is we're growing at this ridiculous pace. We went from 20 employees to 200 employees during the pandemic. So there was 150 people I've never ever met, and hiring them, and it was weird, but it was kind of beautiful in a way too, because here we were growing when people were struggling, and that kind of resonated with, this is all right, this is good. It also taught me that distance doesn't mean anything. We have talent now from Ontario and Michigan, where normally in a normal world, I would not have put an executive team together with that much distance. And really it comes down to now giving everyone that opportunity. The pandemic has given everyone that opportunity to reach out because of these Zoom calls. So that's what I've learned.
Yeah. I haven't met a single executive yet who says that he or she or they don't enjoy their job more. Pandemic, strange as it seems. Right?
Yeah.
So tell me, both of you, how do you like your jobs more, Brad?
How do I like? Well, I like my job more because we got a lot more people I'm not wearing 8 hats anymore. So that's why I like my job more, but I don't think it had anything to do with the pandemic or COVID. I like my job more right now because the pandemic also created this movement. It put a big spotlight on the power of the planet. And whether it's the coronavirus or it's mudslides or it's fires, all of these crises and emergencies are creating a global reality. And that's empowering brands like ours to grab legs that were otherwise there because people were kind of ignoring it. And the planet's speaking back right now, and she's saying, I'm going to correct myself if you guys don't do something. So she's showing us a few ways how she can do it real quick. And for me, I like my job now because we're making that difference every day. The pandemic also engaged our donation strategy. We didn't have that as part of our strategy as an organization. The pandemic hit and we had laundry detergent and people didn't. So this one was easy. Just give it away, right? Get it into the food banks, get it into the shelters, do whatever is necessary. And then now it's a core part of who we are. It's one of our 2 KPIs that drive our organization. And without it, we wouldn't be not only retaining the customers we have, but we wouldn't be retaining the staff we have and this talent that we spent so much time on building.
Yeah. Marcia, you must have some ways that you enjoy your job more and seeing the fruits of the labor here over the last 20 or so months.
Yeah, I guess, I'm not sure if I like my job more. I mean, I think that's an assumption there I'm not sure I would go with, um, because there's both. In some ways I do, and in some ways I don't. Yes, I really like what we've done, how we've developed, the Purelator account and all these other kinds of things. I love to see my leadership team growing, and I love to see, I love to see just all the action and growth that's going on, and not be right in there in every, as I mentioned before, in every little bit. So it gives me a little bit of a step back. I miss the being there part, and that's the part that I don't love more because I used to, pre-pandemic, honestly, I was in the office between 5:30 and 6 every morning, and I would drive workers to job sites, because that's it. And then I get to know them. I'd have these conversations, I'd find out about them and all that. That was probably one of the best part of my job, was getting to know the workers in that very intimate way, when you're just, like a friend. And I miss that. So,
Okay, I'll put an asterisk beside your.
Thank you. Yeah.
Take that one back a little bit and reconsider. Well, listen, it's been a great conversation with the both of you. Sounds like, Brad, we're going to Marcia's place for dinner, and you have to do the laundry, okay?
I'm excited. Yeah, okay. Not a problem.
We'll take the laundry over to you.
Yeah. Deal.
Okay. Right. Thank you, guys.
Right. I want to thank you so much for your time today, and congratulations again on winning the CEO of the Year with us. Brad Lidsky and Marcia Nozick. Good to see you.
Thank you, Kirk.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
I'm Kirk LaPointe, publisher and editor-in-chief of Business in Vancouver. Thanks a lot for watching. We'll see you again.